In terms of serving the master Abdul-Baha, a faithful servant one day was told by the master, "Fear God and bring me a cup of coffee." And on another occasion, he called his attendants to behave themselves and to bring in the samovar and lay the tea things on the table, for which he said was that tea beside the samovar was particularly delicious. Now, these are little snippets attesting to the humor of Abdul-Baha, indeed of his incomparable personage in the annals of religious history, revered beyond words for his absolute perfection as the exemplar of his father's teachings. There was also an aspect of humor, even in the deepest depths of adversity. For example, in the fervid turmoils that attempted to besiege him and his followers for much of their imprisoned life. And in that context, someone had written to him, inquiring how he was. "Tell him," he instructed his secretary with a smile, "that Abdul-Baha is in front of a cannon." But how should we really understand such a persuasion of humor that he displayed, of he that had spent 40 years in prison, of he that is the center and pivot of Baha'u'llah's peerless and all-enfolding covenant and perfect exemplar of his teachings? Well, in fact, understanding his humor is assisted to us as when Abdul-Baha said that laughter was spiritual relaxation. And this was so evident in his telling of jokes and stories that would always be accompanied by his wonderful laugh when he would tell them. And this would captivate everyone in his company, if not at the same time to broaden understandings of the fundamental truths and verities in the propagation of teachings and principles of the cause that, of course, was always his constant preoccupation. Therefore, many stories show the humor in circumstances of the day that he would encounter, if not often displaying the very ironies of the subject matter. For instance, once in Paris, an English reporter asked where he was going next and commented in English how well the master spoke English, and said Abdul-Baha in response that he could say very difficult words such as hippopotamus, and then he would laugh heartily. Another is having to do with teaching itself, as when a Baha'i in service to the faith in the Holy Land thought that he was to go to India, and a few days later was told to go to America. And he said to the master, "I thought I was going to India." And the master replied with a chuckle, "So did Christopher Columbus." Now, as for his endless generosity in giving money to the needy, an attendant and he, in emptying their very pockets one day, was for Abdul-Baha to remark in great laughter that they had made him penniless. Even on the refuge of animals in a zoo in Paris found Abdul-Baha observing one day how people were gawking and staring at a polar bear enclosed in a cage. That prompted the master to remark that the polar bear was probably wondering of how he would ever become entangled with the folks watching him. As for education, another was when a teacher was talking to Abdul-Baha one day and remarked proudly that she had 160 students, and the master replied, "I have none," and that if she would send him some. In terms of service to the faith, one time a Christian had said that upon embarking on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, that he felt that he did not have the proper sense of piety and reverence to do that. And the Master remarked that if he be in constant communion with God, that it would be a telegraph wire at one end, as in the kingdom of the Spirit, and the other in his heart. To which the Christian replied, "I am afraid that my telegraph wire is broken." Then said Abdul-Baha, laughing heartily, "Then you should use wireless telegraphy." Now, one of Abdul-Baha's stories that he enjoyed was about a Muslim, and this was a joke that Abdul-Baha would often hear. A Christian and a Jew were rowing across the sea in a small boat. The weather evidently turned quite nasty, and the waves grew mountainous, and the Muslim began praying fervently, "Allah," he intoned, "drown this infidel of a Christian." About the same time, the Christian began supplicating God. "Oh, Father," he said, cast this Muslim down to the bottom of the sea." During this, the Jew remained silent. The Muslim and the Christian demanded to know why he wasn't praying. "I am praying," the Jew replied. "I am asking the Lord to answer both your prayers." Now, of course, one of the fundamental verities of the Baha'i faith is the oneness of religion. Yet, in Abdul-Baha's stately dignity, his humor is found in so many amusing stories as to make serious points, such as also when particularly he was in prison along with others. And within that atmosphere, they would speak of such hard times there, and of how they would laugh at the very difficulties that had befallen them. And to which joy, Abdul-Baha would explain, was not always a prospect of comfort and affluences, and that it could be found in matters of adversity. Well, so it is then that Abdul-Baha would say, "My home is the home of laughter and mirth," and again that laughter is spiritual relaxation. And when it is remembered of how in the very legacy of Abdul-Baha, in which he was yet a prisoner for so much of his life, and of how the trials and tribulations that rank so huge to so many, but yet underwhelming to Abdul-Baha in his service, and that from that his humor can never detract but embolden the imperishable power of the faith and the human spirit of which Abdul-Baha would speak. Humor, then, can be a balm, as in a physician's healing, to soothe the sadness and stress in a world illumined by the teachings and life of Abdul-Baha. And what a wonderful lesson that is.